The Warriors have the worst record in the NBA and the best shot to land the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Now All-Star Draymond Green told ESPN that former Memphis center James Wiseman would be the best fit in Golden State. He says, quote, he looks to be a pretty mobile, pretty athletic guy, so with our speed and pace, the way we play, I think he would definitely be a great add, end quote. James Wiseman is the best fit for the current Warriors roster. What you got?
I'm going to say, we had this conversation, this question, I feel like a month or so ago. And I honestly think that the Golden State Warriors should trade out of this pick. I said at the time, I still believe it, because you can get a rim runner anywhere, whether free agency or later in the draft, because that's what they need. They obviously could build depth with the shooter, but if you're going to stay there, I'm going to say, that he is the best option for them at number 1, because he's not going to be forced to be anything other than what he currently is right now.
Okay.
He doesn't need to be a scorer, doesn't need to be away from the rim. Well, he can be if he needs to be, if they need to for spacing purposes. But I think it best complements the set of players that they have right now. And we know that they're not building for the future. They're building to win again as soon as they're healthy. So I'm going to say inbound.
I'm going to disagree strongly. I'm not sold on this young man. I'm just not sold on him. By the way, some of the player comps to James Wiseman are DeAndre Jordan, Hassan Whiteside. Now ask yourself this. If DeAndre Jordan's your first overall pick of the draft, is that considered a good draft?
Yeah, but this is not that great of a draft, right?
But no. That says who?
It says a lot of people.
Doesn't mean they're going to be right. Let me tell you what they should take, and let me tell you what they should do. I wouldn't take LaMelo. They don't need him. Obi Toppin would actually be a decent pick because he's mature.
Yeah.
But there's not a ton of upside there. He's played 4 years of college hoops. Anthony Edwards from Georgia, the freshman, 6'5", good build shooter. But you don't need that. The player is the Israeli-Serbian play. That's the kid. His name is Deni Avdiva. You take this kid. He's 6'9", he's 220, and he's a stud. And what you do is you see what Draymond's doing, and I get it. Draymond's answering it we're looking at it from Draymond's point of view for next season and the year after. What you don't do is that. What you do is look forward for the next 7 to 10 years, and how can you sustain a viable championship window for the greater part of a decade? And I don't believe that it's with James Wiseman. I believe it's with Deni Avdiva, who, just watch. Now, I know YouTube, you splice it up however you want, great. You have a little hype video, okay. Watch the video and look at the kid's attitude. You get 15 pounds of muscle on him. This is who I want. Whomever gets number 1, this is who they should take. James Wiseman he makes nothing outside of 3, 4, 5 feet. So I'm not that impressed. I wouldn't take him. It's been a while, but boy, it's been a while. But 3 years ago, the Jaguars were a quarter away from the Super Bowl. Just 1 quarter. And they finished last in the AFC South in the 3 seasons since. Now former Jags corner A.J. Bouye, who we've had on the show, discussed the team's dysfunction with Sirius XM NFL Radio. This is some pretty hot stuff. He says, quote, I just never was a part of anything like this. I didn't know how to handle it, from fighting in the locker room and disagreements to people wanting to be gone. I've just never seen that before, end quote. All right, in or out, let's assign some blame. Doug Marrone is most to blame for the team's dysfunction.
God, it's hard to put it all on Doug Marrone. But he's the one that's most in front of the guys. I'm going to say out of bounds, though. Okay. I'm going to say it was more likely Tom Coughlin. As we remember the Jalen Ramsey saga, and it's all stemmed from a really negative conversation he had with Tom Coughlin. Yes. So I think... Yes. And let's not forget, Tom was also on the field every day like he was a coach, even though he wasn't a coach.
And wearing the bucket hat, right?
Exactly. I think he interfered in a way that kind of undercut Doug Marrone's authority. And so I'm going to say out of bounds. And it explains why, because when this happened, we thought they were both gone. Right?
We did.
Doug's gone, Tom's gone, whatever. Clean house. Give it to Caldwell, too, while you're at it.
Yeah, GM.
The only one that stayed, the only one that was gone was Tom.
Tommy boy.
I got to assume that was the case. I'm going to say out of bounds.
This is a tricky one because I think there's probably equal parts that you can distribute around the horn here.
So true.
Right? Coughlin's got to get a hefty amount dropped at his doorstep, did not do a good job. I believe there's something to be said that Doug Marrone's legs were undercut, which compromised his authority, which kind of spread throughout the locker room, and that obviously wasn't good. But he also didn't do anything to rein it in or to reverse that. All right, so that's partly on Doug Marrone. You could even say, I'm going to say out of bounds. I'm going to change. I was going to say inbounds initially. I'm going to say out of bounds, though, and I'm going to go in a different direction, and I'm going to assign the most level of blame to ownership. Because once they knew, and if you don't know, then you're not a good owner.
Yeah, you're not paying attention.
You're not paying attention. You've got to know the pulse of the locker room and the state of the franchise, right? You don't have to know, if this guy's going to be a great fit in the 4-3 or 3-4 scheme, but you have to know when there's harmony and when there's not. So if you own the team, and all right, so Coughlin was a disaster, trickles down to Marrone. The right move, and you and I speculated about this. We didn't think Doug Marrone would get another chance to come back. You just said this with Caldwell, too. I would have fired Doug Marrone and not allowed him to coach last year and started completely over. And you may have been able to really circumvent a lot of these issues. Hell, maybe Jalen Ramsey. I can't prove this, but maybe Jalen Ramsey's still a Jaguar. So I think ownership misread it, and it was a little negligent there. I'm going to say it's their fault the most. Still debating whether or not they will allow fans into stadiums. I mean, they can debate all they want. It's not their decision. But, you think about it, Teak. The NFL is still debating on whether or not they're going to let people in. Like they have a say in the matter. What say do they really have?
I know. None.
So that will obviously play itself out. But according to The Athletic, the league may call for fans to sign a COVID-19 liability waiver before entering any stadium. Now, we've recently seen teams like Ohio State, you and I talked about that a couple of weeks back, and Indiana asked their players to sign such waivers on the collegiate level. So, first question, in or out, leagues making fans sign liability waivers is in or
out of bounds, DT, because even if you sign a waiver, it doesn't protect you from, or at least it shouldn't protect a team from being negligent or not having, workers in the stadium be compliant. And all of a sudden it's just gross negligence, you know what I mean? So I'm going to say out of bounds. In the college levels that we did talk about, it was mostly like ceremonial. It's more, you guys are pledging to do the right things, wash your hands, be socially distant, et cetera, et cetera. I don't think there was any binding nature to those agreements, and I don't think the league should force fans to do that either. So I'm going to say out of bounds.
Yeah, I would prefer that they don't force them, but I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say in bounds here because I think that even if there are fans in the stadiums, it's not going to be packed to the rafters. You're not going to get 80,000 people at whatever stadium that might hold 80,000. You might get 25% of that. You might get 19 or 20 or 21,000 spaced out within the proper protocol. Maybe you get that. And if that's the case, there's going to be a real demand, I believe, to get in the stadium because there's still a lot of people who don't believe in, not that there is a virus, but that it's, really as dire as it's positioned by many. I believe it's real. I believe it's dire. You do, dire to an extent, as do you. I think what's most disconcerting is that nobody knows what this is going to do in 5, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 years to your lungs if you contracted it. You might be fine in a week or so, but what happens down the road? Does it manifest itself further? I don't know. So, and nobody knows. So if I'm the league, it doesn't hurt. Say, listen, sign this. And I'm looking at this purely, this is callous, I admit that, but purely from a business point of view in a self-protection mode. It's like protection, we all have home protection, right, for our homes. If somebody breaks their arm in our yard, guess what? We're protected, right? We have insurance. And God forbid if something happens with this virus and you contract it in my stadium and you try to sue me, well, you sign. Now, is that legally binding? I don't know. I'll leave that up to the lawyers here. But I would at least put it in front of people and get names on it if I could. And I think, again, if there's 15 or 20,000 people in each stadium, I think you would get 15 or 20,000 people that would be willing to sign that. So why not? Let's move on. NCAA football players are testing positive for COVID-19, as we know, all over the country, really. 37 from Clemson, 30 from LSU, 8 from Bama, now 14 for the Sooners. Yesterday, Illinois linebacker Milo Eifler tweeted, quote, my teammates and I want to play, but schools around the country are showing blatant disregard for student athletes, end quote. We remember Northwestern athletes years back fighting to create a union. It failed, but the effort was there. And SI published an extensive piece today calling for the unionization of college athletes. In or out, a union for college athletes would be good for the long-term health of the NC2A. You got it. This was an easy one for me. You seem a little torn.
Yeah. I'm going to say out of bounds.
Really?
Yeah.
Surprised. Go ahead. Why?
Because as a union, where are you getting? Where's the revenue coming from? You know what I mean? And so, unions are for employee-employer relationships, and that's not the relationships of college sports. There are brand, monetization relationships, name, image, and likeness. But yeah, I don't like this. I'm going to say out of bounds.
Wow. I'm going to say in bounds. Of the 4 questions today, that was the quickest that registered. No, how you form this, I'll leave that up to lawyers. I'm not necessarily. I'm going to stay in my lane. I don't know how you exactly form this.
Tune in next time for another edition of Inbounds or Out of Bounds with Tiki and Tierney.